Good evening. Today I'm joined by Shivers to tell these stories of glitches in the Matrix. We hope you enjoy them. When you are done, please make sure to visit Shivers' channel to see the rest of the stories and to subscribe. Enjoy. Number 1. The Window. Honestly, I would never have thought to even call this a glitch in the Matrix. I always just thought of it as being the most terrifying coincidence ever. I was home alone overnight at the age of 15. My parents were visiting relatives, and after a lot of discussion, I convinced them that I was old enough to be by myself for a few days. They were reluctant, but went ahead and allowed me to be alone. I was having a pretty decent night. This was in the 1980s, and I had an Intellivision. I was up very late, playing it in my room. I must have lost track of time, because it was very, very late. For some reason, I glanced over at the clock and saw that it was 2 a.m. I had gotten completely lost in the game. I can't explain exactly why I did what I did next, but for some reason, I got up and I walked over to the window. I opened the window and looked down. My room was on the second floor, and the screen had been removed from the window when I was younger. When I looked down, I saw a man wearing a mask climbing up a ladder that he had placed against the wall of my house. Terrified, I was about to scream, but instead, I just woke up in my bed. I realized that I was just having a really vivid and bad dream. After I calmed down a bit and got my heart rate lowered, I actually heard a noise outside. I was already on edge still from the dream, but I decided to go and check out and see what was going on. I opened up the window and looked down. I saw a man wearing a mask climbing up a ladder that he had placed against the house. This time, when I tried screaming, I actually was successful. For a moment, I was hoping that I was still dreaming and I would wake up, but I was awake. My screams were loud, and almost immediately the lights in our next-door neighbor's house came on, and someone looked out the window. Obviously, the would-be intruder hadn't expected me to be awake, nor my screams to wake up the neighbor. I almost assumed that he probably thought no one was home because our car had been gone for a few days. But only halfway up the ladder, he knew his plan was shot, and he jumped down, left the ladder, and ran off. I cannot explain why I had that dream. I cannot explain why the man looked like and was doing exactly what the man in the dream was doing. But if I hadn't had the dream, who knows what would have happened to me. Thank God the Matrix has glitches.
For the better part of a week, my life has been ripped apart again and again. I don't even really know by what, but I recognize the signs when it happens. I've been practicing. I can now spot it in crowds, even a good 3 miles away. The signs are always there, and you need to be ever so vigilant if it ever happens to you. But maybe I should start at the beginning. I say beginning, but I've yet to actually connect all the pieces. If I'm being honest, I haven't really been trying. More on that later. The beginning is as far back as I think is important. About a week and a half ago, I had wrapped up my freshman year of college in New York City. I go to a for-profit school in Midtown Manhattan. It's a small place but efficient for what I'm pursuing. Due to the nature of the program, classes are finished around mid-April. It took me 3 days to pack up and clean my apartment. and then 2 extra hours for the residence director to check me out. I took a taxi across the bridge and all the way to Newark. There wasn't a noticeable amount of traffic. It was Tuesday afternoon, I think. I had 6 bags with me, and I checked them all in. As much as I hate baggage claim, it was pretty much unavoidable. It was just after 3 p.m. when I got through security. My flight was at 6:20 p.m. Eastern Time. I had checked in all my personal electronics, except for my phone. A phone without a charger, I might add. I was bored for 3 hours, but it was pretty normal. I spent the majority of my time staring blankly at the television, rigged on a pillar nearby my gate. Naturally, there was no audio, only the black-barred captions that lagged a good 10 seconds behind what the people actually were saying. It was CNN, so they didn't have a lot of interesting things to say anyway. Piece after piece went by. Trump and Clinton, Clinton and the CIA, something about Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, and archive footage of Ronald Reagan. Routine CNN stuff. I nodded off for a bit. I hadn't really slept since finals ended. Too busy packing. It was a nice nap, barely an hour long though. Since I had gotten there earlier than most, I had been sitting amongst people who were boarding the flight before mine. When I woke up, they were gone. A few stragglers remained. People who I would later see on my flight. It was normal. I looked up at the television again. There was barely a cohesive picture. The captions were running fine, but the picture was all sorts of messed up. At the time, I thought the reception must have been terrible because the picture was glitching out something fierce. There were brief moments of clarity, and I kept watching. 3 CNN correspondents sat around a glowing table, frozen with smiles on their faces. The picture was ripped apart into pixels by another camera angle, another smile. A woman moved her head and left pieces of her face scattered in pixels. Lines ran through them, decapitating and bisecting them. Pixel-distorted faces stuck onto other pixel-distorted faces. Faces melted into landscapes. Landscapes melted into faces. An explosion in the desert sprouted from Jeb Bush's head like a pixelized weed. I laughed at this. Ronald Reagan showed up, and his pixeled forehead replaced his eyes. He had no eyes. Then he had no mouth. Ronald Reagan's face was pixel flesh. This went on for some time. It was really amusing to me, and I made a game out of it. Have you ever looked up at the sky and tried to make shapes out of the clouds? Well, I did that, but with the glitches. He looked exactly like the sketch of the Zodiac Killer. I laughed really hard at this. There were other images, like skulls on fighter pilots, but I don't want to linger too much on that. I went home and the glitches followed me. Please understand that I know very little about my situation. I can only relay what happened. I can't even begin to speculate. Maybe it's for the best if I don't know. Okay, I'm stalling. Let me tell you what happened. I didn't notice at first. There were slight discrepancies in my neighborhood. I see them now, but I missed them before. Pictures would twitch, patches of grass would flicker for a brief second. My neighbor's tree would move a few inches at a time, then snap back into place. I thought it was the wind for the first 2 days. The reception on my TV was awful, so I played my game for a bit. I didn't notice anything until the weekend. Whole blocks would pixelate and twitch for brief moments, and come back different. New paint, new cars, or even new architecture. Once there was even a new family, but no one noticed. No one ever noticed, and I stopped bringing it up. As far as anyone was concerned, the houses had been the exact same way they had always been. I thought I was in the Matrix, but Lawrence Fishburne never came. Believe me when I say I tried to get help, to seek some form of medical or psychological attention. I've tried. This leads me to this week, when it all happened. The glitches stopped manifesting the way they had been. They hadn't stopped. They've never stopped. They just changed, or maybe adapted is the more appropriate term. I don't really know anyway. I would get in my car and drive to the hospital. I would be on the road sometimes at a traffic light, and then I'd be lying in my bed. The first time it happened, I choked up. When my throat allowed it, I started screaming and went into full panic attack mode. After I calmed down, I'd get back in my car and try again. Every time I ended up back in my bed, I made it closer to the hospital, sometimes more than others. There were times that I barely even touched the steering wheel before it glitched. This happened hundreds of times. When I stopped feeling ill, I started experimenting with it. I stopped wanting to go to the hospital, so I tried to go to the grocery store instead. I sat in my car for about 10 minutes, and nothing happened. I drove to the store. Again, nothing happened. I parked my car, went inside, and bought a party-sized bag of potato chips and 3 packets of cigarettes. Once again, nothing happened. I called 911 once. I fabricated some emergency and had them dispatched to my house. The ambulance parked outside as I stared at it from the front door. A moment later, though, the door was closed and the ambulance had never come. It was like I never even called them. Whatever it was wasn't letting me leave the house on the grounds that directly involved its nature. I could go about my day, but I chose not to. Instead, I tested whatever it was, and I wish I hadn't. I think I made it angry. I had gone for a walk one afternoon. There's a cul-de-sac near my house where neighbors would throw a lot of block parties with bonfires and everything. I've gone to a few. They were absolutely normal. The established patriarch of our neighborhood is this guy named Bill Fredericks. He's really nice. He and his wife Sharon have lived on the left hemisphere of the cul-de-sac, with a little waist-high white fence outside. They are generally responsible for organizing all the local events. Bill's a stout man, in his early 50s, with some sort of managerial job. He and Sharon were outside watering their plants, and a few neighbors had gathered out front to chat. I joined them, when I probably shouldn't have. "Hey bud, how was school?" Bill has a habit of calling the people he likes bud. He does this with people he dislikes too. There's a tonal difference. I told him about school. He pretended to understand my career. I really like Bill. "That's great. We're glad to have you back," he said. Sharon chirped something inquisitive about my parents. They were out of town. I forgot to mention them. I forgot to mention a lot of things. One of the neighbors mumbled something about liberals. I'm a liberal, I think. We all ignored them. I'm not sure why, but I told Bill that I hadn't been feeling well, that things had been weird lately. He tilted his head and asked me what I meant. "A lovely day for gardening," a voice crackled behind me. It was like the static you'd hear from a child's walkie-talkie, with tonal and pitch variations. When I turned around, I saw another neighbor, Karen Phillips. Beaming from ear to ear, she had a funny expression, and suddenly, the air tasted like copper. "Take a stroll through your local food market, John dear," the static voice continued. It seems like the tone changed. It was like a tuning radio. Her voice was like a tuning malfunctioning radio with terrible reception. There was more distortion, and the air flickered with pixels. I noticed what was so funny about her expression now. It was her eyebrow, the right one. It was angled weirdly, like she was squinting, but she really wasn't. It was sliding down her face like melting wax. Her mouth dropped open and white noise filled the pixel air. Her voice shrieked, far off and through a million radios. "I'm going to fucking die." I blinked, and I was across the street before I knew it. My eyes hurt and my ears were ringing. It took me a moment to realize I was staring directly into a collection of blue and red emergency lights. Bill's picket fence was gone. There was scored earth in his yard, and the front of his house had been ripped away. The heat was still present. The air didn't taste like copper anymore. Where the grass hadn't been burned, and between chunks of debris, there were flecks of red. Charred and blown apart bodies. Bill was on a stretcher. Being loaded into an ambulance, he was screaming, and his legs were gone. There was a nearby police officer, and I asked him what happened. I think I was still in shock though. He said, "The gas line exploded." Sharon and 3 of my neighbors were killed in this accident. Bill lost his legs, and deep inside, I knew this wasn't an accident at all. The glitch used these people as an example. I screamed, and I screamed. The air tasted like copper, and I stopped screaming. I couldn't scream. I was panting inside because I was running down a street, a different street, the next town over. I was in a crowd of people who were all running away from something that none of us dared to look back at. I blinked and I was back in front of Bill's house. The wreckage was still there, and an hour had passed. Various incidents have happened since. Too many. I know it's only been a week, but the glitch messes with my time. Everything is blending together, and I'm forgetting my own chronology. I was making a sandwich, then I was stabbing my neighbor's dog. Then I ate the sandwich. After that, the dog barked at some squirrel outside. I spent one night begging my friend for help. Then I never sent the messages. Then I never typed them. Then my friend hanged herself. Then she sent me a picture of her dog. I like dogs. I left my town and kept driving. I made it about 5 miles. Then I was at home, staring into my oven. Then I was running again. The sky was a pale orange and the people were screaming. They were running. Then I was crawling. A pair of young children dressed in red danced in the yard in front of me. They were eating their parents, singing hymns. Then I was making a sandwich. People usually forget the little things they do at any given time. I've started remembering all of them, the normal consistencies. My finger taps out some tune on my pants. I like that tune. I think it has something to do about dogs. I like dogs. I've come to realize that it is always watching me, in one way or another. People are always staring at me, always otherwise unremarkable people in crowds, or on park benches, staring right at me. They aren't people though. The glitch doesn't use people. They're like bad copies. Parts of them are wrong. It doesn't seem to get the faces right, but I've noticed extra fingers and sometimes crooked noses. They aren't people. They aren't anything. The faceless skipper watched me while I slept last night. There's no soul behind those eyes. Nothing. They're cameras. I'm a hostage to time, and people are dead because of me. That's something I noticed early on. The people that the glitch kills stay dead, no matter what else has changed. It's never me though. I'm never subject to physical harm. Only others. There's more. I've written more. Then I haven't written more. Then I've stopped caring. Then I've tried again. I keep trying. I don't know why, but I want normality. I keep writing for normality, but there's no point. But I post here. I keep posting here. The glitch deletes it every time. The glitch deletes everything I've written. I've written this so many times, and I'm tired. I've forgotten a lot. This is my 57th time posting this year.
Number 3. My oldest brother. I hope to understand this someday, but I honestly don't think that I ever will. In order for any of this to be true, then a lot of people would have to be telling me a lot of lies throughout my life. When I was very young, I was the youngest of 3 brothers. I always remember the middle brother, Scott, was always a bit of an ass. The memories are very, very sketchy because they are from when I was younger than 6. But Scott would always take things from me, punch me on the arm, and just generally make fun of me. But if our oldest brother, John, was around, he would always keep Scott in line. Scott was about 5 years older than me, and John, well, I honestly don't know how old John is or was at the time. Yeah, that probably seems a bit weird, but that's why this story is a glitch. From what I can remember, about the age of 6, I stopped seeing John. And it wasn't like he went away or stayed somewhere. He just wasn't around anymore. Scott would pick on me, and I would expect John to come and defend me. But he wouldn't show up. I always liked to sit by John at the dinner table, but he was never there anymore. There wasn't even a chair or place setting for him. He just vanished off the face of the earth. I know it's hard to really know which memories are accurate when you're that young, but I remember asking my family what happened to John. Why wasn't John around anymore? They always acted like John never existed at all. In fact, whenever they talked about him, they spoke about him as if he were an imaginary friend of mine. I kept insisting that John was real, that John was my oldest brother, and that I loved him and missed him. I would bring him up for years. It really didn't stop until I was around the age of 10. By that point, I think they actually convinced me that he was just a figment of my imagination. From the time I was 10 on, I simply kept the thoughts to myself. I stopped mentioning him, and I guess everyone just thought that I outgrew my imaginary friend. But I don't remember him that way. In my view, in my eyes, in my mind, he was real. I can see him with his curly blonde hair. I can see him wearing an Iron Maiden shirt. Hell, I was 6 years old, and I couldn't have known what Iron Maiden even was back then. But I can see John very clearly in my mind, wearing that shirt. My parents both passed away shortly after I graduated from college, so I was never able to bring it up to them again. I have younger brothers and sisters, but John was gone long before they would have known him. Other than me, the only person who would have any memory of him is Scott. When I asked Scott, he insisted that John was just an imaginary friend that I made up to defend me when he bullied me. Scott and I are close now, and I would hope that if John were real, that he would tell me the truth. If John were just an imaginary friend, or to be more accurate, an imaginary brother, why are my memories of him so vivid? Is it possible that John wasn't a brother, but something else? Could he have been a ghost that visited me for a little while? Could he have been some other sort of being? Or like Chuck from Happy Days, was he simply a real-life brother who walked up the stairs one day and was never seen again? I don't know. I may never know, but I'd really like to. In my mind, I had an older brother named John who disappeared when I was 6. And he didn't just disappear from the house. He disappeared from existence. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please hit the button next to my furry orange friend in order to be informed of new content. Also, please feel free to follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. Ichigo probably won't respond, he's a cat. So I'm sure you all wouldn't be expecting a response anyway. I'd like to thank Shivers for working with me on this collaboration. To see the other half of our collaboration, please visit his channel in the links provided. Make sure to subscribe to his channel as well. It was a pleasure working with him. Also, thank you all for your kind words about Sunny. I let Kevin know, and I hope he'll go to the video and see the nice things you've said. And remember to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a killer orange cat might be hiding. Good night.